Welcome to this webinar about how to map cities with drones. We are very excited today to have this group of people with us to discuss these new things that cities are doing to maintain sustainability and to progress in the Sustainable Development Goals. First, a bit of logistics. I'm Diana Lopez. I'm an advisor on cities and local governments at UNDP here in New York. And I'm going to guide you through the logistics of this. For those of you who is the first time with us, there is interpretation. Tenemos interpretación. Il y a de la interpretación en français, en español, and English. For the interpretation, you need to click on the little button with the wall that says interpretation. Tienen ustedes que cliquear en el pequeño botoncito con el mundo que hay abajo de sus pantallas que pone interpretación.
You can access the French by clicking on the globe icon that is at the bottom of your screen.
We are going to record this webinar. Normally we do edit them a little bit and we upload them in our YouTube channel. So it's available in the 3 languages. Then we have also the option for the chat for you to make questions, comments, introduce yourselves. You can use the chat in the 3 languages, and I will be translating if need be for the other 2. Then with that, just to welcome you to the webinar, and this is SDG Local Solutions. It's an initiative of the United Nations Development Program to see how cities are making Agenda 2030 a reality for all and everywhere with practical solutions. So we are trying to bring, all these SDGs, which are fantastic, no poverty, no hunger, how cities are really making this a reality in specific initiatives like today. So today we have chosen this, how cities are using drones to do mapping of their cities in an innovative way. This can also, because we are supporting the city of Freetown in an interesting project on decarbonization. And they asked for how are we going to use drones to map it. And then we found the solution in Dublin and we wanted to put them in contact. And then we say, why not to profit from this conversation and make others learn as well. So that's the purpose today. I'm going to give the floor to our moderator, María Reyna. She is the executive director of ICLEI Argentina, and she will be dialoguing with Thomas Curran. He is the acting manager on the land surveying and mapping of Dublin City Council in Ireland. And he will be on dialogue with our colleague, Claudine Davies, who is the data and platform consultant at the Freetown City Council in Sierra Leone. So without further ado, the group is yours. María Julia, over to you. Thank you.
Buenos días a todos.
Good morning, everybody. It is a pleasure to be here sharing this space. I want to thank the generosity from Diana Lopez, who is advisor of local cities and government from UNDP, who I have met throughout the years, these initiatives regarding how appropriation processes occur in local governments in terms of all the innovations that will improve the quality of lives of citizens, the quality of public policies implemented, and in an environment of the commitment of not leaving anybody behind and having a sustainable planet. I want to thank Melissa, who was the one who was here assisting us from the technical point of view in order to articulate all this. And of course, the colleagues, Tom and Claudine, that will be here working with us and sharing these experiences. I believe that being able to explore and talk about the transforming potential of drones in order to improve local public management is what convenes us today, analyzing different implementation modes and evolution methods of these technologies in the field of urban policy management, with experience in Dublin and Sierra Leone in Freetown, which is what we will somehow discuss. We will see the implementation, the goals, the types of policies, and the fields where this has been implemented in both cases. I believe that over the past decade, local governments have been facing a set of innovations that have been generated by the digital transformation that have a very deep impact on the point of views and the analyzing of the world. But fundamentally, they stand out due to the great speed at which the progress of technology occurs. And I say this because in that acceleration of the pacing of innovation that we see in technology, on the other side, we have the government, we have the public sector, and of course, the private sector. And they join that process at different paces. And I believe that this is something that we should address, the speed of the changes and to what extent governments can incorporate those transformations, process the transformations, and how they manage and organize those technologies. I also believe that there is great interest in the public sector in terms of applying the technology in different fields of knowledges. If we do a survey, we see that technology is used in agriculture. I could see experiences in my own country where actually the global south has different profiles, and in the precision agriculture, we see that. And we have very heterogeneous fields. Here we have two experiences. One focused on the georeferencing analysis in order to accelerate the timing and the response capabilities before extreme situations. And ICLEI, I am the executive director of ICLEI, which is a space that has been working on sustainability policies, and of course, the use of technology in order to have better information and also be able to act more speedy in a more accurate way and more assertive way. Now, well, I believe that there is a huge challenge faced by local governments, which is to build this passage, to turn information into useful data for public policy. So before information and data, there are interdisciplinary teams working in order to break down the information and turn that information into information that shall guide and define the creation of a good or service. So on the one hand, I want to highlight three features that will be addressed today, which is first, the multiple use of this technology. On the other hand, I believe that it's a reflexive challenge that we have to do, which is the technical capability that we need in local governments in order to use, compile, systematize, and of course, use at the right moment in time and in an efficient way all this technology and this information in a cross-cutting way, covering the different areas of government. The experiences that we see today, one already has an institutional unit that handles the technological innovation, and they are working in different areas: public services, risk and vulnerability, climate analysis, also fires. And on the other hand, we see also the incorporation of this technology in the government management area, so that it does not remain in a specialized unit, but rather it cross-cuts all the areas within government, and so that they can make use of this information that really can allow government to reach the policy goals. And a third dimension that I also believe is challenging to analyze today is to see, well, how is it that you can co-create with this information? How is that you create democracy in public policy? How is it that you can communicate the progress for the different audiences, those who work in the building of indicators? We think, how is it that this data allow us to create better policies, and how we communicate the policies? How is it that we can broaden this scenario for the participation of the civil society and the participation of the private sector that also actually this higher productivity, these disruptive changes of technologies. Also, oftentimes, the timing and the speed of the incorporation in the private sector is sometimes more dynamic, more agile as compared to the state that, based on its bureaucracy and standards, has to face. In Argentina, you can see this very clearly. I was talking about the agricultural experience, the cattle breeding experience, and the productive sector moves very quickly. And maybe the government might think, well, how is that we can use this in the global south? How there are different levels of use and also different levels of maturity in terms of the use of technology. Today, we cannot think about sustainability action beyond the data, beyond the information given to us by climate science and more accurate diagnosis. But also, I believe that we are questioned by 3 topics in data management, and also how we build from this public sector the governance of the data in order to integrate that data to the different sectors that use the knowledge. And I'm thinking about social organization, about thinking about the public and private sectors. And also, there is a very challenging element that will be addressed, I believe, which is the regulatory frameworks, the management frameworks that we need for the use of the airspace. And fundamentally, there we also, in the urban area, we have to think how we use technology with the regulations that truly shall build the universe of possibilities and the restraints in terms of respect of privacy of the neighbor, the citizenship, in this idea that we are all viewed and observed and somehow invaded in the field of our own privacy at times. So there is an ethical debate underlying, and I believe won't be solved. I believe that the implementation process and in the graduality strategy in the implementation that has to do with the state capacity to do so. This is being built. This is being determined by experience, and also to what extent, in order to have active citizens, informed citizens that have an impact on the processes to build urban policies, we can create open government mechanism, transparent, seamless mechanisms for the use of this information in the portals of the local governments. I believe that this field of technology and public policies, together with artificial intelligence, does not have a clear roof in terms of where we can go. And we are there trying to find a certain intelligence that will allow us to create an intervention strategy in order to solve the problems of the neighbors, of the citizens, the problems of the deforestation of our cities, and a capability of sometimes generation of damage or risk that calls for clearer and more dynamic responses from those who work in the field of organizations such as ICLEI and also local governments. So in this sense, I believe that these 2 experiences that I will present today, they were already introduced very clearly, Thomas and Claudine. So Thomas, you are there. I would like to give you the floor.
Hello and good afternoon from Dublin. My name is Tom Curran. I'm the head of the Survey and Mapping Unit within Dublin City Council, and that now incorporates a recently formed drones unit. Over the next 10 minutes or so, I will run you through our recently produced drone strategy. Take the next slide there. So just a little bit of context, just with regard to geographic size and population of the city. And then on the right-hand side there is our goals over the last few years to create a dynamic and sustainable city for all citizens and communities and tourists in Dublin. Okay, next. Okay, so There's been a significant use of drone technology within Dublin City Council over the last 10 years. So if you want to just go there, next click. Yeah. The most frequent users are based with myself in Survey and Mapping Division, also Dublin Fire Brigade, Civil Defence, Waste Management, and the various different sections who would need to access dangerous buildings, monuments, various different structures where accessibility is a significant issue, primarily from a health and safety point of view. It's also been a fairly large requirement from our press and media department, who are looking for content for social media or for coverage of the various different events Dublin City Council run throughout the city. Okay. So that's just that's slightly out of date. Just give you a context of the numbers we have training and pilots. Next. Okay, so why do we need a drone strategy? Okay, so we've recognized the need to better manage our flight operations throughout the organization, to review the governance of our operations, and to look at the future through various forms and innovation, be it drone technology, flight management, sustainability, and also future research. Okay. Okay, so why do we need a strategy? Our Smart Cities unit initiated the strategy by first engaging external consultants from the drone community to guide us through this process. So we hired 2 external consultants who had vast knowledge and excellent background within the drone community. So we first started off by holding a workshop, and there you go, there's a photo of the staff. And it was a workshop for all those who use drones at the moment or come from sections or divisions who have an interest in using drones in the future. Okay. So we carried out a staff survey for all the various different departments, and we processed and collated those results. We then held an industry showcase day where we invited a large number of private and public companies to come in to show us what products and services are available in the drone world or the drone community out there. As you can see, the list of exhibitors, it's a wide range. There's engineering, surveying, Mana, who are a drone delivery company, training, a number of different organizations. Yeah, just the Coast Guard was there as well. Okay, so we followed that up then just with a general survey to the external companies to see what exactly they could provide for Dublin City Council. Thank you. Okay. So the strategy, so the vision which is there. So Dublin City Council to be a European leader in the delivery of drone-based public sector services and to enable a wider ecosystem in which drone innovation can flourish to the benefit of all citizens in a safe, inclusive, affordable, and environmentally responsible way. So we also had our mission. So the mission was to improve DCC services, enabling the scaled-up use of drones for tasks such as planning enforcement, emergency response, environmental monitoring and protection, and from a waste management point of view, try to deal with illegal dumping in the city. Another part of the mission was to increase public trust, responsible use of drones, promoting broader community benefits of drones, and most importantly, prioritising safety. We also need to ensure that all the drone services adhere to the highest safety standards and ethical principles for their operations. And we also wanted to support innovation in new drone services that would support economic growth in the area. Our core values, the crucial one, health and safety. We just have to make sure all our drone operations are done in a safe and healthy environment. Innovation, we need to explore the potential for new drone innovations to enhance the service delivery. Sustainability, a crucial one, promote environmental responsibility and any impact that might have on climate change. And the transparency. We have to be open and transparent in all aspects of our drone operations. Our guiding principles, data privacy, public engagement, regulatory compliance. That last one, regulatory compliance, is critical because of the nature of the flights we carry out within the city. It's a large urban area, and we need to ensure we operate within the strict guidelines the Irish Aviation Authority issue, which are directives from the EU or the EASA regulations. Okay. So the notable outputs of the strategy. Okay, so one of the primary strategy outputs was the creation of a central corporate drone unit. The survey and mapping division was identified as the most suitable host based on the resources and experience of the staff who worked there. Under the current regulations, Dublin City Council is required to register its drone operations with the Irish Aviation Authority, which we have done, and there are 4 separate sections who have registered as sub-entities. This is a critical regulation that we must obey within the Irish environment. Okay, so another key item of the strategy is the engagement and creation of a strategic partnership with external organisations. The first example of this is a project we've just started in collaboration with the Irish Aviation Authority and with Maynooth University, who are based just outside the city. Okay, the title of this project is the Drone Innovation Platform. This project will look at how local governments and aviation authorities can work together to understand how we can best manage low altitude airspace in the urban environment, to look at how we can engage with users, to define the rules for flying and address areas for concern in relation to safety, security and environmental impact, and also privacy, which is a primary concern as well. So this project will look at drone technologies, stakeholder requirements and viewpoints, the regulatory framework, and to have a look at use space and UTM design. We've just recently received funding for this project, and we're in the process of finalising the appointment of 2 staff to work at that. Okay. Okay, so this slide shows the key competencies of the drone unit. Okay, and I'm primarily concerned about this on the operations. So what we're looking to do is we're looking to create a centre of excellence within the organisation based around training, pilot certification, regulatory knowledge, procurement and drone technology. These are all critical core competencies to how the drone unit will actually function and work. Okay, I'm going to try and show you a video now. Hopefully the sound will work. This is just a brief 2-minute video that will show you some of the examples of the work Dublin City Council have done.
Since 2017, the Survey and Mapping Division have been using drones to support all sections and all divisions within DCC. We use drones to capture photos and videos to monitor the progression of large-scale capital projects for asset management, inspections and condition surveys. Drones play a pivotal role in improving workplace health and safety by eliminating the need for staff to access hazardous sites, which is extremely important to Dublin City Council.
Thanks to drone technology, we can get important information about how the site works, informing how best to allocate site staff and how to set up temporary traffic arrangements. These aerial surveys are very important for keeping track of progress on the project. They also help to identify potential delays to the project, which keeps us on track. With the help of drone technology, we're redefining urban travel, ensuring a more connected and sustainable Dublin.
In 2023, we started using drone technology to assist us with inspection and assessment of some of our more historic buildings. Drone surveys are helpful to us as they can provide clear and accurate images in close-up detail and assist quickly in our assessments. This method can speed up our on-site evaluations and also reduces cost and time expenditure.
DCC uses cutting-edge drone technology to help keep our city safe from flooding. DCC's drones were used to inspect the old quay wall and to produce orthophoto images to aid repair works. An orthophoto is a scaled image which allows the engineer to measure dimensions and highlight repair locations to the construction team. These advanced surveys were crucial for identifying defects and guiding repairs, all while ensuring the safety of our team and reducing traditional survey costs.
Drones are used by Dublin Fire Brigade to enhance both its awareness of risk at a site prior to any event happening and a response to an incident at that site if it were to happen. It gives the incident commander a fuller picture of what is happening at the incident and also allows them to make better, safer and more effective decisions on the ground. Fire brigades all over the world routinely use drones, and the Dublin Fire Brigade hopes to create a centre of excellence for this application in Ireland.
Thank you. To give you an example of what a difference the drones make to our day-to-day work, I know there was a couple of seconds of footage revolved around this example. We had a request for drone footage to inspect the status of a historic building that's located nearby. Previously, the inspection, we would have needed to hire a cherry picker, which is a crane platform. We would have had to close off streets to allow this machinery to be brought in. It's a very big machine, laborious to move around, so the road would have to be closed for quite some time to allow movement to get all the way around the building. With the drone, we were able to fly the mission in just under 30 minutes. From a health and safety point of view, once we had identified our safe takeoff and landing zones, that was our only issue of concern. We weren't flying over people. If there was an incident with the drone, it would land on the roof. But there was a significant cost saving for this. There was no need to hire the machinery, the operator, and also considerable time saving as well. I would say the 30 minutes as opposed to the possible half day that would be required. Okay. So that's just the benefits. So as you can see, it would have been 4.5 times more expensive between staff resources and higher cost to go the traditional way as opposed to using the drone. Okay. So once again, the time efficiency, a couple of hours as opposed to days, possibly weeks, depending on the size of the project. Okay, just to finish, if you just want to hit there. Okay, so one of our consultants came up with, this is our catchphrase, the 3 Ds. If the job is dangerous, dull and dirty, then a drone should do it. And we have fully embraced that phrase, and that's now one of our mantras. There's that, and I suppose the overall DCC mantra is drones for good. So that's my presentation, so thank you very much.
What would you like him to explain further or provide more details?
I know I just have one question. So I just wanted to know, the Dublin drone unit, do you have your own drones? As in, do you procure your equipment yourself? In which case you do not need to source equipment and source drone from external service providers to carry out public services using drones? Or is it like a hybrid mix, where in some instances you do it internally using your drones, and in some other instances you use external service providers?
Sorry, what we're using is we have 9 drones. They're mostly the Mavic Minis, and that's due to where we fly, because under the Irish aviation authority regulations, because we're flying in a specific category, there's restrictions on how high we can fly and weight and various different things like that. It depends on the category the drones fly in. Yeah. There is the option for big. Now we've procured them ourselves. Okay, so they're sitting in the office. They're good to go whenever we need. For a larger type drone, say for example, if we need a bigger camera, or from a surveying point of view, if we wanted to put a LiDAR unit or multi-sensor capture, we would have to procure that. There are a number of companies who will rent us that equipment, and they will also rent the market. Our only concern with that is where we can fly those drones, because it pushes it into a different category, and we wouldn't be covered under our our specific operations risk assessment document, which is approved by the Irish Aviation Authority. So we would need to get a third party who is certified and cleared to fly within the Dublin City Council area.
Maria, can I ask one more? Or
Yes, go ahead. The question is very interesting. So another question.
I just wanted to know as well, Thomas, as at the time that you did your drone and urban air mobility strategy, did you have an overarching legislative framework, at the national level at the time? So you had a situation where you had to be in alignment with the legislative framework around urban and air mobility? Or was this a situation where the Dublin city was sort of leading in terms of having like a drone and urban air mobility strategy, and then the central government or the national government had to catch up with you later? How was it like? What was the timeline?
To my knowledge, this is the first, it's definitely the first strategy within local government. As far as I'm aware, it's the first strategy like this within the country. We do have the Irish Aviation Authority, who are the regulators, but they sit under the Department of Transportation. Now, they're currently working on a national document for the drone strategy, for a national drone strategy. There was a deadline for that, was earlier in the summer for submission. So we Dublin City Council made a submission to that. And the next stage, I believe that there'll be workshops or various different talks throughout the country before there was an official issue from the Department of Transportation. But everything we do is based under the regulations from the Irish Aviation Authority, which in turn are the EU regulations, which are, I don't know if you've come across EASA.
Exactly, yes, I've come across it, yes, exactly.
So everything we do from a flight point of view is under their rules and regulations. It depends where we fly, what category. If it's a specific category, we fly under restrictions with regard to how high we can go, certain areas, for example, near Dublin Airport, national monuments, near prisons, court services, stuff like that. There's Dublin Airport is to the north of the city, but there's also 2 airports to the west of the city, which also impact on potential no-fly zones. But once we have the approval from the Irish Aviation Authority under our SORDA, we have the ability to fly in those zones.
I want to remind those who are here present and following us on YouTube that you can ask questions on the chat and they will be considered and answered by both panelists. Thank you, Tom, for your intervention. And now I would like you, Claudine, what is being done in Freetown and how is it that you've been using and for which fields you've been using drones?
Hello, everyone. My name is Claudine Davies. I'm the Data and Platform Manager. I'm here in Freetown, Sierra Leone, and I'm working at the Freetown City Council at the Mayor's Delivery Unit in Freetown. And I specifically work with the Freetown, the Freetown project, and I'm going to be speaking about the way we are using drones here at the Freetown City Council, you know, in the mapping of our cities across various sectors and speaking about various use cases. And but definitely I'm going to have a focus on Freetown, the Freetown, and of course I'll be going into other sectors that we have here at the MDU of the Freetown City Council. So as we can see here, we're looking at a Freetown city context of using drones to map cities. Next slide, please. The background of Freetown is very important. You know, Freetown, we are located here on the west coast of Africa, and there was a time when Freetown was used to be a very heavily forested city, and the population was quite small. But over the last 20 to 30 years, we've been dealing with significant population expansion, basically a lot of rural to urban migration of people, you know, who are coming in for economic opportunities and for other reasons. And as a result of this huge population expansion and rapid urbanization, here in Freetown, we have experienced significant deforestation. And as a result of that deforestation, we've experienced very, very significant negative climate risks, such as flooding and deforestation and landslides and shortage of water supply. And as a result of that, when the mayor came into office in 2018, she wanted to, that this was a primary issue, a primary concern. So she wanted to address that. And that is how Freetown, the Tree Town, was born. And the plan was to initially to grow 1 million trees by 2022. And I'm happy to actually state that that has been done. We've planted and grown and digitally tracked over 1 million trees and counting. This year, we're going to plant 300,000 more. And we're trying to see how we can be able to reverse the deforestation by investing in reforestation efforts. The way Freetown, the Tree Town works is we are very concerned and we're very particular about using technologies, digital technologies, such as, you know, mobile applications and web applications, and also drone technologies, which is the focus of this webinar. And in addition, we work with communities. So Freetown, the Tree Town is a locally led ecosystem-based climate adaptation project. We work with local communities to be able to plant the trees, to grow the trees, to track the trees, and be able to, at the end of the day, to monetize the trees by bringing them into the carbon market and selling carbon credits on the international stage. So that's what we are doing now, and we're very happy for all of the partners that we are working with. So if we look at the next slide in terms of the SDGs which are being addressed by Freetown to Freetown, we would see that climate action is definitely one of them. So, and after climate action, we see gender equality, because as part of Freetown to Freetown, it's very, very important that in the way the dynamics of the employment works, we employ planters, we employ growers, we employ trackers, we employ monitors. All of these are people who are working in the field. We employ community-based organizations, and we always ensure that we are employing at least 50%, even up to 60% of the people that we employ to work within the project are women. And also decent work and economic growth. Like I said, the Freetown project has contributed a lot in terms of providing economic opportunities for young men and young women and youth who are present within the locality of Freetown. And definitely, because we're working on reforestation, we're working on reversing the effects of climate change. The Freetown project has, at its core, enabling sustainable cities and communities. In this context, Freetown. Okay, so the problem we want to solve, that's where we are now. So, like I said, the Freetown City Council is working on various challenges. There's no council that doesn't have challenges. So we have a lot of solutions that we're rolling out to meet those challenges. And for the context of this presentation, this webinar, we're looking at things like environmental sustainability, and that's where the Freetown to Freetown comes in. The mayor and the mayor's delivery unit and the whole of the Freetown City Council, we're working on a number of projects and sub-projects to contribute to having gains on environmental sustainability. Urban planning, that's also a very important sector within which we can use drones. Urban mobility as well, that's a very important sector within which we can be able to use drones. And also waste management is also a very, very key aspect of what we are doing. These are just 4 of the sectors that we have. We have a lot more, but of course, we only have a limited time within this webinar, so we cannot speak about everything. So of course, the mayor came into office in 2018, and where we are now, we basically have an agenda to transform Freetown and to transform lives, and we have development roadmaps and intervention work plans to do that. But in terms of drones, it's very important for us to understand that in any developmental planning process, you need to have you need to be able to use technology in a manner that would help you to do a proper gap analysis, because you know where you are. At FCC, we want to know where we are, and then we want to know where we definitely want to know where we are going. And the beauty of drones is that it's going to help us in terms of understanding the existing, current context. So let's say we want to go and do some area development of a particular community. We want to fly some drones there so we see the existing shape, the existing landscape. How do the drainages look like in this community? How do the buildings and the properties look like in this community? If it's a coastal community, what's happening in terms of coastal erosion in that community? And then we want to have like a pre-implementation and post-implementation outlook. And drones help us in doing that sort of gap analysis and assessment, being able to collect that data. So that's the problem we're trying to solve. We have a lot of developmental plans, we have a lot of roadmaps, but we need to be able to find out, to understand what the gaps are that we have currently. And part of that process is in the utilization of drones. So we have some instances where we've been using drones, but we want to see how we can expand and extend our use of drone surveys, and doing having high resolution geospatial maps. And then being able to analyze and process that data and having insights that we can pass on to the mayor and the senior executive and leadership of the council, so that we can be able to take informed decisions for development. So it's basically drones for developmental purposes. Next slide, please. Okay, so we see here, I want us to take a look at some of the things. Like I said, the FCC with the drones, if I look at the context of Freetown and Sierra Leone so far, it's sort of, people started using drones here, let's say roughly around like 7 years ago. That's when we started. So about 7 years on now, there's an increasing number of vendors in particular, even though the number is still quite small relative to other countries. But there's an increasing number of people who are using drones and for various use cases and various applications. And the FCC we're definitely not behind in this aspect. So I've separated things here into various clusters. We can see climate action and environmental sustainability. And when it comes to that, I've highlighted a project there, and you can see Freetown on the left. and you can see impact. So there's a cluster, there's a project, and there's the impact. And you can see various things that we're doing with drones currently, and also things that we plan to do in the immediate future, even in 2024. So we've used drones for generation of geospatial maps, for existing reforestation areas. We've used drones for aerial mappings, for new reforestation areas, because we keep on expanding. We have a plan to plant up to 5 to 7 million trees by 2030. So we're always looking for new reforestation areas. Some of them might be in terrestrial areas, some of them might be in coastal areas where we plant mangroves. We also use drones, to do some particular data. It helps us in terms of doing some particular analysis. For example, now we're about to go into the carbon market. Well, within the next 18 to 24 months, because there's a long process, we have to do feasibility studies. We have to register. Our project needs to be verified and certified by international bodies. But we need to be able to analyze our tree density. We need to be able to track our trees basically from the sky. We need to be able to count our trees, and we also need to be able to do things like what we call AGB, above ground biomass analysis. But drones help us to be able to do all of this analysis by giving us aerial mappings and images of our trees and various reforestation areas around the communities where we are planting. So that's just for Freetown, the T-Town. But then in terms of urban mobility and transportation, the city has very, very ambitious plans and targets around urban mobility, and we have a project which is yet to be implemented, as in rolled out for the city, but it is a work in progress currently. So we have what we call the cable car. So some of you might have heard about it. So it's not launched yet, but it's in the pipes, it's in the pipeline, and we use drones in that project as well. So aerial maps. We use drones to do aerial mapping and to capture images, which helps us to know exactly how many lines the cable car should have, which line should be in the east, which line should be in the west, which line should be in the central, that kind of thing, and how the routes should actually be mapped out on the land. So the drones helped the technical team doing that technical feasibility study. Also, the drones were very useful, while the FCC was doing technical feasibility study, for us to know how many stations and where these stations should actually be for the cable car. So that's also an example of the way we use drones, within the urban mobility and transportation, sector of the city at the subnational level. Next slide, please. I'll just try to move faster. We also have projects where we've worked on urban planning and infrastructure upgrades. So with funding from the development partners, the World Bank, we've been able to improve communities. So we have like 2 or 3 communities where we worked with engineers, and we were able to use drones to produce geospatial maps and do land typology and terrain analysis, which helps the engineers to build better drainages, to build, design, and construct better drainages, also to build, design, and construct better roads and road networks for these communities which were not doing well before the project. So drones were used as part of the feasibility study. And also finally, something which we have coming up in the future, within the context of the Freetown City Council, we have a specialized division that deals with heat. So we have a chief heat officer, and there are lots of other cities in the world that deal with that have chief heat officers. So in our case, we as part of the climate resilience subcluster, we want to be able to understand heat dynamics, because we know that extreme heat is a very, very serious situation. It's one of the negative impacts of climate change. And we've done heat mappings before. So in 2022, we did a heat mapping of the whole city of Freetown. But in that case, when we did that, we used heat sensors and monitors, but they were not drones. We did not use drones. But now in 2024, before the end of the year, we're planning to do a second baseline and do another extreme heat mapping of Freetown, and trying to understand where we are experiencing the urban heat island effect. And the drones, we are planning for the drones to be able to help us, to give us geospatial maps and imaging, for urban heat islands, and also to understand the different heat risk causative factors, because there are different causes which are contributing to heat right across various places. And we want to be able to use drones in that implementation of the second heat mapping baseline for the city of Freetown. So that's why you see Toby. So that's something that we have scheduled for the future, in the immediate future, within the coming months. In terms of the challenges that we have ahead, I think one of them definitely is that I think maybe similar to Dublin, we currently don't have like at the national level, we do not have a specialized legislative framework, like a bill or an act of parliament that has been passed around the way drones are utilized, who should utilize drones, the classification of drones, where to fly the drones, things around the safety, of people's lives and people's property. Also thinking about things relating to privacy management, because drones go up the sky and they're taking pictures. So you have to be careful when you're taking pictures. Did people give their approval before these pictures are taken? All of these things. So we need a better legislative framework to be passed, at the national level. We don't have that currently in Sierra Leone. And also, I think the drone acquisition and maintenance costs, that's definitely an issue that we have now. So you see that the market could be larger, but it's not that large because importing drones, from international markets into the country can be very expensive. And because it's very expensive for the service providers and vendors, it means that there are exponentially high charges for councils and institutions like us. The Freetown City Council has to bear the burden of the higher cost prices, which are also borne by the vendors when they're importing this equipment. So if we get to a point where market prices are lower, well, let's say custom costs also get lower, more people are able to bring drones in, and then we have that sort of substitutability in the market, then it will reduce the prices and the barriers to accessing drones would reduce. And then definitely, I think we definitely need more people who are highly trained and certified, operators of unmanned aerial vehicles. That there are some people who personally own drones, but they're not really trained. So we need to be having people who are well trained and definitely to be trained in the use of more sophisticated drones. And yeah, so that's also a situation that we have in terms of improving the capacity of people and companies as well who are utilizing drones. And basically, what's next? And finally, where the Freetown City Council is looking at working in partnership with various partners. We work with the central government, definitely, because we are the city council, so we work at the municipality sub-national government level. We have the National Civil Aviation Authority, and they are the people who issue permits for the flying of drones. They're the people who you have to give your flights plan and all of. They are the people who certify any drone flights that happens within Freetown. So aviation regulatory bodies, we continue to work with them, our international development partners, private sector companies, youth and women and community leaders, and also investors and funding partners. The Freetown City Council, we believe in engaging and partnering and collaborating with various stakeholders for all our accomplishments, for all our initiatives, and for everything that we want to do. And there's no exception in that when it comes to our adoption and our operationalization of drone technologies. And we're hoping that by the time we get to 2028, because we have a new plan now, transforming Freetown and transforming lives, which is running from now all the way to 2028, we're really hoping that we would be able to utilize and implement and make the best use of drones, leveraging this technology to be able to advance the developmental agenda of the mayor and the Freetown City Council, so that people living in Freetown, who we call Freetonians, they'll be able to live better lives, and we can be able to transform their lives and their families. So that's the end of the presentation, and I look forward to your questions. Gracias, merci beaucoup.
Tom, do you have any issues that you would like Claudine to expand on? So do you have any questions for Claudine?
Well, one question and one observation, just with regards to, he was talking about expense for some of the drone units he's looking at. We have maybe a slightly cheaper option for him. We might talk in the near future, just based on our experience using photogrammetry as opposed to LiDAR. And then just a general sort of question with regard to drones in general. You are doing a number of flights, and I'm just wondering, have you ever had to come across, or how do you deal with illegal or unauthorized flights by other individuals or organizations within your airspace? Has that risen and has that come up before?
Yeah, so like in we are not the regulatory agency. So like I mentioned, we just like you have the Irish, I think you can call it the Irish Aviation Authority. We also have the our National Civil Aviation Authority. So it means that if there's any individual or there's any organization that's doing illegal flights, because before you do flights, you need to register that flight. You know, your company should have been registered with the Civil Aviation Authority, and your drone should also have been registered. And before every flight, your flights plan and your flight path, all of that has to be registered. So if the law enforcement agency is the Civil Aviation Authority, it's not the Freetown City Council. So even in the case of the Freetown City Council, if we want to use drones in just because we want to implement some of our development plans, let's say within Freetown, the Freetown, or like I was mentioning, we have the extreme heat new baseline and heat mapping that's coming up, we would have to go to the Civil Aviation Authority, and we need to let them know that we need to have a permit, like a clearance. We need to have a clearance. So either we do it by ourselves internally, or we work with an external service provider, and they have to get a clearance and have a permit issued to them by the regulatory authority before they can move forward. We are not the law enforcement authority in this case.
I would like to ask you two questions because I believe these have been asked several times in our chat, so please expand if you can. Tom, you were just saying, you were just talking about how you operate and how you get the authorizations, and you know there's a lot of red tape with that. So what happens with an emergency situation or a critical situation? How do you articulate all of the authorizations with the aviation authority? Could you expand on that?
Depending on the area, that there are restricted zones within the City Council administration area. Due to the approvals we have received from the Irish Aviation Authority, we have permission to fly within these zones based on the approval from the IAA, and we also need permission from, if it's over prison or court service or within the airport, within 2 kilometres of the airport. We are able to fly within these secure areas, but we need permissions beforehand. It's not a matter of turning up and flying. We need notification to be given to the body at least a couple of days ahead of time. But the only reason we can fly within those zones is because we have approval. The organisation has approval, has its SORA, its specific operations risk assessment. So the IAA have assessed our documentation and have deemed us suitable to fly in these areas.
The municipality has have any measures in place to protect sensitive infrastructure and personal data in the process of using drones?
The data, there is GDPR, and in order for us to get our certification with the Irish Aviation Authority, we have to submit and comply with the data protection impact assessment. That's the document we need to submit. It is covered by the European GDPR rules and regulations. So any data that is collected, it has to be kept securely. In fairness, most of the stuff we do is mapping, and the last thing you see on a map is a person or a car. So the initial process, we strip out any people, any cars, because we're looking for the hard surface. We're looking for the building location, the road carriageways, pathways, parks, 3D information, and it's building heights, stuff like that. But no, we are fully compliant with the GDPR regulations, and if we didn't have our DPIA, we wouldn't be granted the permissions to fly by the Irish Aviation Authority.
I would like to know the mayor's commitment in leading this drone technology in its public policies.
You see, like with Dublin, for example, they do have a drone unit, and they have a drones and urban air mobility strategy, which is basically like a policy which they are following for the utilization of drones within their skies in Dublin. So we currently do not have that here at the FCC. And but it's something which I believe we are working towards, you know. So I believe that, let's say, it's good that we are coming, we participate in these webinars and we get to engage in, you know, and share ideas. So I believe that within the next few years, that is something which we definitely would have to take up and see how the possibility of that being implemented here at the Freetown City Council, where we can have a specialized drone unit which handles the strategy around the implementation of drones. So it's sort of, it's project agnostic, because the way we're doing it now, for example, within Freetown, the Freetown project, if we want to use drones to do some aerial mappings, to do some imagery, to do some baseline surveys, then the Freetown project does that separately as its own project. And let's say there's another project with some other people on the other side who are working on urban mobility, who did the cable car. They do it by themselves and they handle their own drone and drone procurement and implementation and all of that. And they have their data and they do what they want to do. So we are looking at a situation where, moving forward within the next year plus, we can be able to have one drone unit which centrally manages the implementation of all these requirements around drone implementation for the council. So regardless of the project, you know, whether it's coming from urban mobility, environmental sustainability, urban planning, sanitation, waste management, it doesn't matter. As long as it has to do with drones, it goes through the drone unit. I believe that's the way they're doing it in Dublin. And within a few years, this is something which I'll bring up with the mayor. We'll discuss about it. And it's something as well which we'll speak with our development partners as well, because there are funding requirements around there are funding requirements around setting this up, but it's the good thing is this year one of our funding partners actually provided us funding, that's the World Bank, to be able to have a drone. So we're going to have our first drone, you know, which is going to be owned by the Freetown City Council, and that's a good thing. So this is a step in the right direction in terms of us, you know, moving towards getting our own drone unit and being able to implement things ourselves without always having to engage and collaborate with external service providers, you know. Yeah, so that's where we are for now. I hope I answered the question, even though I didn't get the context fully.
I want to thank for your participation. I want to thank that you have shared this experience, this working experience in both cities. I believe that we've seen issues that have to do with planning, the planning of these technologies in order to incorporate them to the creation of public policies. On the other hand, I believe that it is very interesting to see how there is an articulation of these actions with the rest of the stakeholders in the ecosystem, the academia, on the other side, the private sector, the suppliers that you have. Ultimately, that shows the complexity of the implementation of these actions in order to enhance the cost effectiveness and the time cost and response capacity that you are reaching. So I want to thank all the presenters, and truly I believe that we have really taken note of all the contributions made, and let's hope keep on moving forward, and let's see this leadership and innovative capacity of Dublin inspire us, like Claudine in your case, those who are who have the implementation of this technology far away due to the cost issues. Let's be able to incorporate them because they have come here to stay, to improve the government response before complex situations such as security, infrastructure risks, and environmental issues at large. So thank you very much to you all. Thank you, Diana Lopez. Thank you, UNDP, for organizing this space of dialogue and exchange.